more than you do. But at least they're talking about sports. It's the Breakfast Buffet on Sports Radio 1450. Here's Bonzi, Ryan Staley, and Mark Graham.
Well, one of those guys is here.
Who?
Good morning. We'll get that worked out. Nick Riley decided to not join us this morning, but that's all right. This is not the Breakfast Buffet. It's a little bit better than that. It's Fantasy Football 101. It's Adam Stark alongside Mark Graham and Eric Pedigo from DisasterRadio.net, and we're talking fantasy football. We're happy that you guys are tuning in today. We'll take your calls at 529-1450. Lots to talk about, though. Week 1 of the NFL season already kicked off. Had a game on Thursday night, Giants-Redskins. Victory for the Giants. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things, but first I want to introduce the guys that are helping me out this year. And Mark, you've been doing this for quite some time. Tell us about yourself a little bit.
Well, this will be starting year 4 for me. I started the third game of the first year the show was on, and I've been involved in this for about 18 years now, which makes me an old man. I'm going to be 50 before too long.
I didn't know they had fantasy leagues 18 years ago.
Well, yeah, this is back in the this is when Joe Montana was popular, and you did your stats from the USA Today and do it online. It was a nightmare, I'll tell you, but it's a labor of love. I just enjoyed the heck out of it, and it's nice to have fresh faces, and you're pulling double duty. Not only are you're going to host and you're at the board, so I'm telling you, you're multitasking to the max, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll do my best.
You're all right.
Why not just throw me right into the fire? That's all right. How many leagues are you in this year, Mark?
I toned it down a little bit. I'm in 5.
5 different leagues.
I was going to go 3, and it never works out. I always get offered in a couple more, and I can't say no, so 5 leagues. One being an IDP league, which I'm commissioning. 30 rounds.
Wow.
Guys, let me tell you, 30 rounds, you feel like you've been through a fight.
I bet. Well, we're going to talk about the IDP leagues, head-to-head leagues, points, keeper leagues, points per reception leagues, all that stuff, too. So stay tuned for that. Eric Pedigo also joins us. This will be his first year here on Fantasy Football 101, but he's no stranger to the fantasy leagues. He also has a show on DisasterRadio.net. Tell us when and where we can find that.
I do a couple shows on DisasterRadio.net. I do the Athletic Supporters, which is
it's a good
name. But I've been doing that for a little over 2 years, and I just started doing a show called the Fantasy Football Face Punch that you can hear on.
Oh yeah,
you can hear on Wednesday nights on Disaster Radio at 7:00. Athletic Supporters is Sundays. Well, it was Sundays at 4, but now football's starting, so I'm going to have to adjust the time a little bit. So I haven't ironed that out yet, but we'll see.
It's good stuff. You can check that out on DisasterRadio.net. Our friend Ray Lytle from our sister station, The Rock 96.7, in charge of that. And Eric, how many leagues are you in this year?
You know, I'm only doing 2, which is enough for me. I don't know how you can keep up with 5. You said you toned it down for 5. I'm only doing 2, and I'm like, oh man, this is an overload. I have to really be on my stuff. I'm only doing 2 this year. Maybe I'll get into more later on in life, but right now that's all I have time.
Well, I'm also in 2 leagues. One's with Eric, one's with Mark, so that'll be interesting as we discuss things today. And let's get things going with the pros and cons of some of those leagues. One of the leagues I'm in with Mark is a keeper league. We kept 2 guys.
Right.
Now, some guys you keep 1, some keep 2, some even keep as many as 4. I know you guys keep 4 in one of yours, right?
We keep 4. Yeah, we keep 4. And we started off, we were going to keep 5 or 6 and really try to keep your team together. But when it came down to it, let's just keep 4. It'll make the draft more interesting. And you still kind of get to keep your nucleus in there of your main players. And it's worked out pretty well. I like the keeper. I like the 4-man keeper league.
I see. There's a pro and con to that, as far as I can see. When you keep 4, it kind of takes the fun out of the draft a way.
A little bit.
But then it also throws you right into the mix. What would normally be the middle of the draft, where your meat and potatoes is anyway.
Yep.
So four keepers. I could see where that would be an interesting way to set up a league.
Well, I think one of the problems with keeper leagues though is you need to make sure all those guys are coming back.
Yeah.
Keeping the same 10 or 12 guys, however many you have in your league.
That's the thing. We've let in a couple expansion teams, and if anybody does bail out or anything, it's just what happens is their team just goes right into the pool, and then the new expansion teams that come in, they get to pick those first 4 rounds before any of the other teams get to pick anybody, so they can kind of fill up their rosters with whoever's there that the team before left off. So it evens itself out, but you're not going to get guys like LT or Peyton Manning or anything. Once somebody has them, they're pretty much gone.
Well, it definitely changes your draft strategy too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If you have a points per reception league, this is the first year I'm going to be in a points per reception league, and I like that.
Oh yeah, you're going to love it.
and Mark's the one with an IDP, and I don't really like that, but tell us why you do.
I think the IDP is interesting because it's not really caught on yet. I think it will. And it takes a lot more time to get involved because a lot of the guys in fantasy football just solely on offensive players, and they don't watch the defensive guys. So this is something completely different. When you have to draft, and we drafted, I think it was 6 defensive guys, you have to really study, and what really is nice about it is they can save your week. If your offense lets you down, like I was just telling you guys before we went on, I had Fletcher, and he ended up with 20. I got 26 points out of him in this one league.
Wow.
That may, who knows, that may save me for the week.
How does the scoring work for the defensive players? I mean, how does it match up against the offensive guy?
2 points per tackle.
Okay.
You get a point and assist, a point for an interception, fumble recovery. So and depending on how you set it up, you can really make hay on the defensive guys. Yeah.
Wow.
But it does, like you said, you're going to have to do a lot more research as far as your draft. And how early do you take a defensive player?
I think you, about the 6th or 7th round is when you start going for the Patrick Willis's, D'Amico Ryans, and that. The linebackers are basically your running backs in IDP. They're gold. And about 6th, 7th rounds when we start seeing those guys start flying off the board.
Well, we're just getting going here, Fantasy Football 101, but we already have some callers, and we'll take those at 529-1450. Fantasy Football 101, good morning. Hello. Are you not there? All right. Well,
that was an easy question.
Yeah. We didn't get that one wrong anyway. A little bit later on, too, we'll have our studs, duds, and sleepers for the week, so stay tuned for that. And a lot of injuries. Mark was talking about the wide receivers. A lot of guys banged up, and there's some defenses banged up now, too, and some offensive line. That's going to affect some of the running back play and the quarterback play as far as who you're going to start this week.
Absolutely. There's a couple guys, in fact, LT owners kind of tone back their expectations because they're missing 2 offensive linemen.
Well, do you think he's really going to be 100% back from that injury he suffered late last season? I mean, that's not really been addressed much. What kind of shape is LT in? He didn't play in any preseason games, so nobody really knows.
From what I've heard, he's fine.
Okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've heard that there's been no problem with the injury from last year, but they just don't want to take a chance. That's why I think he may...
Well, he never plays preseason, so...
No need for him to.
Yeah.
When you got someone that valuable, there's no sense in putting him in a preseason game.
No one said anything about it, really, during any of the drafts.
You know what
He
I
went
mean?
number 1 in almost every single draft I saw.
Oh, yeah. It's just something I was wondering about. They usually don't like to let us know if there's any sort of little nagging injury or anything like that, but it's just something I wonder about. He went down late last year. He couldn't even play in the playoff game he was in. He took himself out. You got to wonder if he's all the way recovered and ready to go for this season.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad I don't have LT on my team.
Me too.
I have Adrian Peterson on both my teams, though. Hopefully he's healthy again this year. Let's talk a little about the draft strategies, though. Anybody pop up in any of your drafts, guys, that came a little too early, maybe you're surprised about?
I don't know about any individual, but what got me, Adam, more than anything else, were how the receivers this year, as opposed to the last few, just seem to really fly off. I don't know if that's because a lot of leagues have gone to 3 receivers starting and a flex, but it used to be...
points per reception.
Sure, absolutely. It used to be running backs would dominate the first, basically, 2 rounds. Well, I know it got to be about pick 7 or 8, and then the wide receivers were going just great guns for the next 2 rounds. That's what struck me more than anything else this year.
Wide receivers are getting high. The PPR adds a lot to that. The point per reception is really, really up the value of wide receivers in most leagues. So in our league, you used to be able to wait, and later on in the draft, you could really get some good receivers that you could plug in on a week-to-week basis. But this year, everybody was all up by round 6 or 7. You were looking at guys like,
Reggie Brown.
Reggie Brown.
We were all talking about him off the air, too.
Good God.
But, another thing, too, I saw in your draft, Eric, you didn't even take a kicker or a defense in the entire draft because you like to base yours on matchups.
No, I did. I did. I took a kicker and a defense.
Okay, well, it was way late then.
Yeah, the last 2 rounds. That's my rule. I don't take a kicker or a defense until the last 2 rounds, no matter what. There were guys jumping on the San Diego defense really early. Gostkowski, I think, the New England kicker, went in like the 11th round in my draft.
Can you guys explain why this love affair with drafting a defense in round 8 or a kicker in round 9? I don't understand this. No one's ever explained to me why this is beneficial.